We be live, I think, if everything is going right. How's my idea, huh? How's my idea? Tell me so I can get started. How's the idea, huh? Is this good? Is this good? How's this? Can you hear me well? We be live. We be live and we have Patreon questions. If you don't know, before I go into the live stream, I can see we already have live stream questions from Music Guy. But before I do that, I have to answer Patreon questions. So if you're not a patron, you better become a patron so you get your questions answered ahead of time. The way it works is for our patrons, they don't have to be here live. Well, nobody has to be here live. But if they can't be here live, they can send their questions ahead of time. And that way their questions will be answered even if they're not here. So if you can't show up to our live streams but you want to ask questions, the best way to do that is to become a patron. Link in the description, all that good stuff. Just be a patron, okay? Even if you're not going to send questions, it just helps the show. Well, don't be a patron if you can. If you're struggling, don't support anybody, including us. All right, so first patron question. Okay, well, so his saying idea is great. Fantastic. Okay, Secular Proton is our first patron. He's asking, apologies if someone has already asked this question. Apologies are not accepted, even if nobody has asked this before. I will not forgive you, Secular Proton. Well, actually, you're a patron. Apologies accepted. Secular Proton asks, what do you think of reparations for the black people in the US for slavery and discrimination they have faced in the past? Oh, wow. All right. Okay. First of all, oh, thank you guys. Let me read that one more time. What do you think of reparations to the black people in the US for slavery and discriminations they have faced in the past? Okay. So the gut reaction to this is to be like, well, this is not fair. The sins of the father is not the sins of the son. Why do people today have to pay for the crimes of things that their ancestors did that had nothing to do with them? Okay. Unlike that take, a lot of people might assume that I would have that take. I do agree that, poverty and wealth have multi-generational effect, right? So if you have like many generations, so we're not even close to far enough from slavery for people today not to be suffering economically, socioeconomically as a whole from what has happened before, right? So this is pretty obvious. Like you can see that people's wealth is highly predictable. It's not people, conservatives always come up with examples of people who used to be poor and they did something and they figured it out and they managed to become wealthy, or vice versa, people who were rich who lost everything, and they come up with anecdotal evidence to try to suggest that this is not the case. But even with those anecdotal evidence, the best predictor of wealth is past wealth handed down by your ancestors, right? So if you rob an entire community, an entire group of people from the opportunity to progress at an early stage, but then eventually make the laws equal, like let's just assume, it's not, but let's assume everything is equal, okay? Even if you make everything equal, the effect of the original disadvantage is still going to hold, even if now everything is equal, right? Like I don't know, like it's like playing basketball with another team, and the other team, at first you like break their knees with a club, and then after the knee breaking is over, you could be like, okay, we'll stop the knee breaking now. As of now, the rules are equal, right? Like, okay, the rules are equal now, but our knees are still broken, right? Like, okay, yeah, that was before. Now the rules are equal. Well, the things that happen to your community, like again, poverty is multi-generational. Like, it will have lasting effects for like 10 generations down the road. Like, obviously it will continue to have that effect. So we're not even like 3 generations past slavery, they're on 10 or 11, right? But here's the thing. Even though that is true, I still don't think that when it comes to reparations, there are some certain issues. Okay, I still think that if you want to reach out to the worst of the worst, targeting by class, targeting by poverty is better than targeting by race. Okay, if certain racial groups are not if, like, it's true. Okay, but certain racial group of people that have been hit harder by the unfairness of, a history of unfair disadvantages, right? It, the fact that that will the fact that you're focusing on eradicating poverty will automatically target those people more without you having to try to target a certain racial group, right? Let's say, for example, well, let's not say it. Like, let's actually look at real examples, right? Black people, like in United States, are experiencing a lot more poverty than other groups of people, right? You're like, okay, let's like undo this. Like, let's target this. Let's try to fix this. Well, you don't have to target black people. You could just target poor people, because guess what? Other poor people have also been dealing with multi-generational effects, maybe not slavery, but something else that is cause for major poverty. Like the fact that, let's say, black people experience more poverty than other people in the United States. Well, if you just target poverty, then you automatically are targeting black people more. You don't even have to make it a race thing. You will automatically target black people more because you're targeting poverty. And then you're also going to reduce the chances of like creating conflict and resentment by trying to give advantages to certain ethnic group, even if you could show that it's justified. Well, if it's justified, just target poverty, right? And also when it comes to targeting poverty as a whole, not focusing on any racial groups, reparations, what are we talking about? Are we talking about cash handouts? Because that's the worst way of eliminating poverty. Okay, like, are we talking about investing in communities, education, family planning, decriminalization of certain of drugs? By the way, all the things that helps black people come out of poverty are the things that the conservatives are against, right? Like, people are like, a lot of conservatives make it seem like it's the liberals that are trying to create this victimhood complex and are trying to create an identity of people just accepting that they are behind and they'll always be behind and they will stay there because of what the liberals are doing. But it's actually no. If you look at the actual solutions to poverty among black community and everywhere else, the 3 main solution comes from the left. Okay, again, I know like people are going to be upset that I'm saying liberal and left. Yeah, whatever. Bite me. The 3 solutions are access to education, which the leftists are just saying, right? Family planning, which is the right leanings are against, and legalizing drugs. So those are what we need, and the right lean. So, but yeah. So basically, the answer is reparation. What do you, if by reparation you mean just investing in education and in communities and outreach, long-term investments based on like evidence on things that work, just targeting poor communities that just happens to be mostly black, but also sometimes not black. If that's what you mean by reparations, then yeah, that I'm for that. I'm definitely for that. But if by reparations you just mean cash handouts to people that just happen to be a certain skin color, then I'm definitely against that. Okay, so it depends on what you mean by reparations. Okay. Okay, Claudia has is another patron. This is a second patron question. After that, I will go to the live stream and answer the live stream question. But Claudia sent like multiple questions, and the first question is like it's going to take a while for me to answer. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, Claudia's first question: what do you think about this BBC article? Okay, here's the article. Let me actually bring up the article. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it here. Okay. What do you think about this BBC article? Do you think Iran was behind the tanker attack? What should the West do? Okay, this is going to be, this could be its own stream, okay? Yeah, I do think that Iran was behind the attack. Nothing is 100% sure. Do you guys want me, the live chat, can you tell me if you want me to read the article very fast for you, or you guys just want my general takes on it? Do you guys want me to go into detail, read the article, and respond to it? Or do you want me to just like give you a general response? I'll start with the general response. I will say that, you know, like Iran gets away with saying that it wasn't us by using a lot of proxies, and I'm assuming this is what's happening here. Again, I can't be sure. Like, it could be a Hezbollah group or another Shia militia group that Iran was like, well, it wasn't us. But people are like, come on. Like, this is like, I feel like Iran is used to being able to get away with having Shia proxies that are indirectly communicating with. So the way that Iran's government gets to act like these acts of terror around the region is not directly to them is by creating a gap between them and their proxies. So these proxies are supported by the Islamic Republic of Iran, are ideologically in the same line, on the same line of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They consider like Khamenei, which is the supreme leader in Iran, to be God's representative on earth. However, a lot of these militias, they're not Iranian citizens, and at the same time, you would be hard to find a direct communication between Tehran and them sometimes to be able to carry out any of these attacks. So there's some plausible deniability when it comes to Tehran with these attacks, right? But everybody knows and understands that these are acting on behalf of the mullahs in Tehran, right? And because people didn't want to escalate these tensions with Iran, they will like kind of treat them separate, as if they're not being directly ordered from Tehran, right? However, Biden has been escalating stuff. Biden has been like treating a lot of the attacks by Iranian proxies just like they are being done by Iran, and they have the red lines that Biden is having when it comes to what Iran's government gets away with is actually a lot less than what Trump would allow. So it's interesting how a lot of people thought Biden would be weak, but especially this kind of attack, this attack on a tanker has been happening back and forth between Israel or Iran and Iran for a while. But it's interesting because when Israel attacks Iran's assets, it actually attacks Iran's government's assets, right? But when Iran wants to attack Israeli assets, it could be like anybody else's asset, as long as some Israeli has some connection. Like, for example, this recent attack, this was like a Japanese company. I don't know, the people who died were British and Romanian, but just the owner of the ship, I think, happened to be Israeli. So that was good enough for Iran to attack. So it's just like, it's just all over the place. I don't know if I got it right. I think the owner of the ship, the company was Japanese, or I don't know exactly, right? But yeah, I think it was an Israeli philanthropist that I don't know, I think billionaire or whatever, I don't know, that owned the ship. But the thing is that the difference between, so usually these attacks all have the same characteristics. It seems like there's drone attacks on ships, I don't know if they're coming from Hezbollah or from the Houthis, or from some of these other proxy Shia proxy groups. But this time people died. Okay, so this one, oh, people are saying yes, please read the article. Okay, all right, let's just read the article. So this one is very different because a British man and a Romanian died. Okay, so this is like multiple countries now. Like, so it's usually like Israel is like telling everybody, like, look, guys, look at Iran, look at Iran, look at the Islamic Republic, look what they're doing. Anybody's with me? Anybody's with me? And there's people like, I don't know, like let's pretend like Israel is not here. But now like Israel is like, hey, your citizens died. Like, can we now, like, hey, Romania, it's good that for Israel, this is going to be a major, it's hard, actually, it's so sad to say this because we're talking about the Romanians' death, right? But this is like not a country that is traditionally anti-Islamic Republic, right? So a Romanian citizen has died, and Romania is like, what the hell, Iran, right? So Romania now joining the group and be like, and this is like part of the European Union, right? Romania is part of the European Union, right? Is Romania part of the EU? Yes. Okay. So yeah, this is serious. Okay. So Romania is like, this is not cool. This is not cool, Iran. And I mean, if Romania is convinced that this was Iran, UK is convinced that this is Iran. People, if Israel and United States, people don't trust them anyways. But Romania, people are like, why would Romania lie, right? Anyways, let's read the article. People are saying yes, yes, it is. Let's quickly go through it. The UK and Iran have summoned each. Why is Romania not included? This is discrimination. Romania also. Okay. The UK and Iran have summoned each other's diplomats in a row over last week's deadly attack on an oil tanker off the coast of Oman. The UK, US, and Israel blame Iran for the attack, in which two crew members, a Briton and a Romanian, were killed. I think the Romanians also called out. I think the Romanians also summoned their diplomats. But apparently, I guess nobody cares about Romanians. What the hell? Tensions are high between Israel and Iran, and each has regularly accused the other of targeting shipping in the region. Iran dismissed accusation it was behind the latest attack as baseless. It's funny because they say it wasn't us, but then for if you look at their spokespeople, for internal consumption, media consumption, they're like, look, we showed them. But then for external media consumption, they were like, it wasn't us. Or they just say like, oh, look at our brothers, just showing it to the Zionists. We're like, oh, it wasn't us, it was just our friends and allies in war. So like, yeah. On Monday, the UK summoned Iran's ambassador over what the British government called the unlawful attack. Yes, see, like, guys, UK, this is going to make it very difficult for Biden to continue with the deal with the JCPOA, the nuclear deal, going back in. Like, Iran just killed one of United States' main allies' citizens. So it's like Biden's like, come on, man, I'm trying to do a deal with you, but you're making it impossible. Honestly, it seems like Khamenei just doesn't want the deal to go through, right? I don't know. It's the deal, guys. I was right about the deal, not going through as easily as a lot of people assume. People assume like, okay, there go, the Vienna talks is happening, the deal is happening anytime now. Now people are like, we don't even know if a deal gonna happen. I was like, I know a deal seems like it's gonna be happening. I just don't see how. The red lines from both sides are just unnegotiable. Anyways, we're getting off topic. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Iran should face up to the consequences of what they've done, calling the incident an unacceptable and outrageous attack on commercial shipping. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he was consulting with the UK, Israel, and Romania, and there would be a collective response. Iran, yeah. Okay, I don't want to keep reading the rest of it. Oh. The tanker has been traveling in the northern. Yeah, this is just the location. Okay. So, what was the rest of the question? The rest of the question was, what should the West do? Um, I think there needs to be a counterattack. I think there needs to be a counterattack. I think there needs to be some um, Shia proxies in the region being taken out, just like Biden did that in Syria before. I was in favor of him doing that, and I'm in favor of him doing that right now. I think there needs to be consequences in Vienna talk. I think the whole idea of the Islamic Republic of Iran demanding that the Vienna talk only be about the nuclear issue and not about anything else, incidences like this proves that the United States should not back down, that part of the condition needs to be a commitment for these activities. Like any activity like this would mean that the JCPOA will be null, like will be canceled right away. Actions like this have to prove that, you know, proves that should prove that the United States shouldn't back down on demanding that. And I also hope that Biden doesn't put pressure on Israel when it comes to like support. Not only doesn't put pressure, it does when it comes to Israel's successful attacks in key parts in Iran. I think I want Israel's new administration to be, because Netanyahu was a disaster. Netanyahu was playing Republicans against the Democrats, and that was like a wrong play. Instead of like just being united with the United States as a whole, and I'm glad that the new administration is not doing that in Israel. And I think that the new administration in Israel needs to just get closer with the Democrats, more closer than Netanyahu was. And you know, incidences like this should bring United States and Israel closer together. And for, I mean, not closer together in a form like the whole nonsense when it comes to supporting the West Bank settlement and like religious mumbo jumbo, supporting like intelligence sharing and actually cooperating with making the hurting Islamic republics, you know, nuclear ambitions, which anybody who tells you that it's about peaceful energy is full of crap. Okay, it has nothing to do with peaceful energy. It's all about nuclear weapons. Okay, anybody who tells you that otherwise is full of crap right now. Music guy saying, I wonder how would Netanyahu respond. They probably would respond the same way. This administration wants to prove that they are as tough against Iran as Netanyahu was. However, I just hope that working with United States would be easier with this administration than the one before it. Okay, so Claudia has another question. I'm just going to answer this one fast so I could go into the live chat questions. What should the West do? Oh, I already answered it. Let me actually see if you guys have any comments. I'll get back to your comments later. Okay. How are you saying? Is YouTube and other media censoring atheists? Is it worse for ex-Muslims than for other atheists? No, YouTube is not censoring atheists. YouTube is not censoring anybody based on their identity. YouTube is not consciously even being executed. You know, YouTube has no interest in censoring a group of sub people. They prefer having people on their platform. It's just certain topics. Their algorithm and their team is not very good. Like, so it's kind of like a. It's not like when we, like, for example, when Atheist Republic gets strikes or when some other ex-Muslims get strikes, it's not like somebody actively just sat down and like, oh, I hate people speaking badly against Islam. This shouldn't be allowed. It's just a lot less organized like that. There are certain words, certain trigger words that will just get the algorithm firing against you, and then there's just somebody that spends 30 seconds looking at it and just deciding whether this is strike worthy or not. And it's just the nature of some of the, like, it's definitely not atheist. Like, you could be an atheist that talks about certain religion and Christianity all day long and nothing will ever happen to you, right? Even if you talk about Islam, if you're just mindful of the not using the words that maybe the algorithm has proven the algorithm to be sensitive about. It's not like they are like, oh, you can't talk against Islam, or like if you're an ex-Muslim you would be censored. It's more like we don't have the resources to just like check every goddamn video. We have this like certain words that hate people who seem to be like bigots say often enough for us to just use as a way to target people who use the same vocabulary. And if you want to appeal it, we probably don't have any resources for anybody to actually come look at it, unless you're a big channel. Then we will take you a lot more seriously. So it's just like the nature of not having enough manpower to look at. And it's the same thing with Facebook. Like, it's not like this malicious purposeful intent that makes these platforms censor us, right? I'm not saying I'm still complaining, but I'm still going to complain about it. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's the nature of it. Anyways, let's go to the live chat question. So because we spent so much time on them. All right, questions. Oh, my favorite people are all here. It's so sweet. Okay, music guy. Guys, sending me more questions. So we have 1 hour to fill. I see you guys are having, talking back and forth. Okay. Armin, could you give us an update on what's going on with Iran? Did the protests stop? No, the protests have not stopped. They have been the longest continuous protests, I think, ever. Awesome, you're in the live chat. Can you correct me if I'm wrong? This has been the longest continuous protests ever in Iran's history. No? Anybody? Qasim, is that true? So, guys, for people who don't know, the protests are happening in Iran, and there doesn't seem to be that much of an appetite as before as for suppressing it, because I think they're just like, I don't know why. Qasim is confirming that yes, it is actually the longest continuous protest. But it started before what happened in Khuzestan because of the water shortages. It started right after the election. We saw protests starting over workers going on strike, mainly from the oil industry and also from the dairy industry. Am I right? And they were going on strikes. And then the water shortages in Khuzestan, which is a province in Iran. It's an Arab-speaking province in Iran. Arab Iranians live in Khuzestan, by the way. A lot of people don't know that Iran has a province of, Arab Iranians. So not all Iranians are Persians. In fact, there are many other ethnicities other than Persian in Iran. Like we have Kurdish, we have Turkish, we have Baluch, we have Lor. But yeah, we also have an entire province of Bakhtiaris and Arabs. And this is a province that Iran's government is very sensitive about, because first of all, it's a border province. So they're worried about the Arab neighbors using it as a way to create, they try to suppress the people over there, because they are trying to, the government also fearmongers, tries to reduce support of other Iranians for this province by suggesting that these are separatists, right? But a lot of people in the protests are saying that they're not separatists. They just be needing water, right? And also, there's a misunderstanding. A lot of people think like water, as in like people don't have water to drink. It's not. It's water for the land, right? Like the crops are drying, right? It's not like, and it's not like water that humans drink to stay alive. That's like a fraction of the water that this province needs right now, right? And most of it, and this is, guys, don't blame this. A lot of people are trying to be like, oh, people in Iran are protesting because of their crippling sanctions is making, U.S. sanctions is making people's lives miserable. This is one of those instances that it was mismanagement by it's less to do with sanctions. This was an active, intentional decision by the government to direct water from this once fertile land in Khuzestan to other provinces in Iran, which were more in ethnically, religiously, and ideologically in line with what the government is happy with. So basically, it's kind of like the water was stolen with like these dams and stuff, right? So this is like people be angry. Don't like not, if anybody wants to blame this one and the U.S. sanctions, then they don't know what's happening again also in Iran. Okay. So people are protesting over water shortages, and this is gonna probably, I don't know, continue because water, there's not, the water situation in Iran is getting worse and worse. Inflation is crippling, and that you could partly blame on the sanctions, but also blame a lot on the mismanagement by the government as well. What else? Oh yeah, but now it's getting over. Now the protests are spreading to other cities, and it's just going beyond water. And people are just like saying death to Khamenei directly himself, the supreme leader. It's just like these are brave words right now in Iran, and you keep hearing it. You keep hearing it more and more often with more frequency and less time between each one of these protests. Again, I'm not saying that this means the government is going to be toppled or anything. I don't know, but it's just getting a lot more intense, and it's just not stopping. And yeah, it just seems like it's just now we just have nonstop protests. Every single gathering, like there was recently a celebration for like a football match, and that turned into a protest. Like it seems like if people be gathering, there will be protests. It seems like that's turning into a rule in Iran, right? So that's my update on the situation in Iran. Was that good enough, Qasim? Did I do a good job? Yeah, Qasim saying it's the longest run of protests, more than 14 days. Yeah. Did I cover it good, Qasim? Qasim, are you satisfied? I want to make sure people from inside Iran are confirming that this was a good enough coverage. I'm waiting for Qasim to say something. Is Qasim still here? I don't know. Oh, wow. Thank you. This is very nice. You guys are very nice. Oh, yes. Qasim is saying, great. Guys, we got confirmation from Iran that my coverage of the protests were top of the notch. Okay? So there you go. You guys are just chatting with each other. Okay. Secular Proton is saying, but do you think Romania has any influence on foreign policy? Well, Romania is going to, I think Israel should love Romania right now because it's harder for people to believe. First of all, Romania is part of the EU. And also it's harder for people to believe Romania is going to come. People will be like, oh yeah, Israel will say this was Iran even if they have no proof. But people won't believe like Romania, right? Romania would lie about this. Why, right? So like, what's in it for them? Right? I think it could be a major influence because you don't have your traditional players, right? You don't have your traditional anti-Iranian government players, so it just gives it some, more. It just makes it more authentic, more believable. That like Romania is like you killed one of our citizens. Oh yeah. Pirates of the Persian Gulf. Yeah, guys, this is a government that is actively acting like a pirate, right? Like this is what you expect from failed states, right? Only like failed states produce pirates, right? Like Somalia or something. But no, this is like a standing wannabe empire, and they're sending out pirates. These are suicide drones, by the way, that they're using. Drones that are not supposed to recover. I don't know what this is referring to. But if US demands that, then wouldn't US and its allies would also have to play by those rules? No. Why would they? What rules? Are you talking about? Okay, so first, like, what are you specifically referring to? First of all, are you talking about if United States makes Iran not meddle in the Middle East, then they would have to abide by the same rules and not meddle in the Middle East? Not necessarily, because they are doing a deal. They're like, we give you this if you give us that, right? So if you know, what would Iran have to give for the United States not to be in the Middle East? They don't have anything to offer for such a major move, right? So it's like you give and you take. It's a deal, right? So United States is like, we'll stop the sanctions on you. You stop, you do this and this and this, and part of it is not meddling in the Middle East. If you be like, okay, well, you don't meddle in the Middle East as well. All right, okay. Well, that's a new thing that you're asking. What are you going to give me for that? What can you give me for that? Like, you guys think like everything has to be, no, this is like, you guys think this has to be fair because everybody has to behave a certain way over this negotiation. No. They're giving you something and you respond, they want something back from you. Okay? If you're not going to do that, well, fine. They're not going to give you what you want. People are like, well, no, this is, what do you mean? Like, they're giving you something. They were the one that put the sanctions on you. Yeah, but no country is entitled to trading with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, the fact is that United States gets to say that we're not going to trade with you, and our allies are not going to trade with you either, unless you stop messing around in the Middle East. They get to do that. They give, and they're like, you want to trade? We'll stop meddling in the Middle East. This is just a agreement, like, between two entities. Like, you guys are saying, like, this doesn't make any sense. What DTR saying doesn't make any sense, right? Because if you are now asking for United States to also not do certain things, that's an extra request on top of these two things that you're exchanging with each other. And if you don't like the exchange, you don't have to enter the deal. Okay, I missed my spot. Oh, here. Oh, here. Oh, yeah, I already read that. Okay, Dolly's saying, do you think the authorities... Oh, Dolly's a member. Hey, thank you, Dolly. Dolly and Ghost Bunny and Music Guy, you guys are members. That's so sweet. Do you think the authorities will respond to the protesters? Well, they did, just like, okay, so I don't know why they haven't responded already. Are they scared? Have they lost their resources to crack down? Is it because of the nuclear deal that is happening right now that a crackdown would look really bad? Are they just going to wait for after the deal and then just crack down aggressively? Or are there have the results of the previous crackdown on the protests were brutal? They were brutal, okay? And maybe they're afraid because the reaction to the last brutal crackdown was international condemnation and more people coming out and more people expressing their views against the government, not less. And less people seem to be afraid. So maybe they're looking at the record, looking at the results of the previous giant crackdown, and they don't know what to do, right? I honestly don't know. This government is not very predictable because there's multiple the people who make the decisions, they're competing with each other, and we don't know who's having what argument behind the scene and who's going to come out winning. It's like you could go, I don't know, a month without any crackdown on the protests, and then after a month you could see, like, okay, this is it. Cut down the internet, media blackout, send in the troops, just go all out, hunting season on people, like aim for the, it's just like, I'm not going to say anymore because like it could get very bad very fast. I just don't know. It just seems like people have lost their patience to the level that they're not afraid. I don't know. We'll see. I honestly can't. It's hard to predict. Qasim, do you agree? What sort of Arabic do they speak in Khuzestan? Is it a particular Iranian dialect, or is it close to, say, Iraq or sometimes like that? I have no idea. If I had to guess, I would say it would be closer to Saudi Arabia because it's right. Well, actually, let me see. Well, yeah, I have no idea. I know that Saudi Arabia sends a whole bunch of, propaganda into Khuzestan, and I know that Iran used to send propaganda to Saudi Arabia's Shia region in Saudi Arabia. I don't know, honestly. I can. Oh, let me actually tell you something. Um, say close to Iraq. I think maybe close to Iraq. If I had to guess, can somebody correct me? But I could tell you something. The reason why we are so ignorant about the Arabs in Khuzestan is because nobody told us that they exist forever. Like when we grew up in Iran, I don't know, Qasim, has things changed in your time? But the idea that we have an entire province of people speaking Arabic was like, what? Like, this was not told to us in school. We were completely like, imagine growing up in Canada and not knowing that you have a province of French speaking people because you were always in Vancouver and nobody told you that, yeah, we have a province of people not speaking English, mostly speaking French. Like, oh, I didn't know that. Nobody told us in school. That's how we grew up. Nobody, like, was this on purpose, like, kept away from us? I don't know, but like later on, like, wait, these people, is their main language is Arabic and they're Iranian? Like, mind blown. Like, for 20 years that I lived in Iran, nobody told us that. Is it like, was this kept away from us because of the idea of like trying to hide away? Like, is it a fear of separatism? Did I say that? Separatism? Yes. That they don't share this information with us. Like, we don't have anything like on in kindergarten or on TV being like, hey, let's meet some of our like Arab citizens. These are all our fellow Iranians. Nothing, like, no, like it seemed like it was a hidden. Another thing that was hidden from us was a civil war that we had with the Kurds shortly after the revolution. Like, this was hidden from us. Yeah, I think they're hiding these things from us so that they don't see that there's actual conflict within the country, right? Like, the only war that we ever knew about was the Iraq-Iran war, right? And my uncle died in war. So I always assumed that he died in the Iran-Iraq war because that's the only war that they ever told us about. And I was a kid. I asked my mom that if my uncle he killed any Iraqis, and my mom was like, "Oh no, he wasn't in that war. He was killed in the Kurdistan war." I was like, "The Kurdistan what?" Like, yeah, the Kurdistan war. There was like, with what? Like, yeah, there was a war between the Kurdistan province was trying to separate from the rest of Iran, and there was a war, and it was a major like violent, you know, suppression of that movement early on in the revolution. And apparently, my uncle was in that fight. I was like, they didn't tell us that. Nobody told us about this in school. Nobody told us about this in school. Like, they're just wiping it off of history books. Like in our history books of Iran, that happened in our lifetime, and it's as like it's not there. It's not in the history book. Anyways, music guy saying, Armin, would you switch to synthetic meat to reduce your carbon footprint and reduce animal suffering? Well, depends on the price. Depends on the price, because if it's too expensive, I could help more with that money, right? Like, imagine if you like, oh yeah, spend $1,000 to reduce your carbon footprint. Like, well, I could donate $10, and that would, yeah, you could donate $10, and that would omit 1 ton of your carbon footprint. 1 ton, right? I think so. I think that was the numbers because I remember donating. So why would I spend $1,000 or like anything that is more expensive than steak when that money could be saved and help the planet in a better way? Okay, I'm only going to focus on questions, not comments, because I am feeling a bit sick today. So I'm trying to end this class. Why are the most secular Muslim majority countries in Europe? Why are the most secular Muslim majority countries in Europe? Because it's Europe? Oh, what? Secular? Well, I mean, because Europe is more secular than other places? I don't understand this question. Because secularism hasn't been... Wait, Muslim majority? What Muslim majority country you're talking about? I thought you mean like majority... I don't know what you're referring to. Give me some examples. Muslim majority. What I would say is like most Muslims experience secularism in non-Islamic countries because they are, I don't know, way ahead, I guess. I don't understand this question. Give me an example. Muslim majority country. Give me examples of Muslim majority countries in Europe. Thank you, Qasim. Do you regard Buddhism as a philosophy or religion? I think it's a philosophy. Okay, let me read that one more time. Do you regard Buddhism as a philosophy or religion? I think it's a philosophy. How is it not a religion? Guys, religion, if you have belief in the supernatural and rituals, yeah, that's it. That's the only 2 factors you need to be a religion. Rituals and belief in supernatural. Those are the 2 elements, okay? And Buddhism has both of that. So it's a religion. That's the most simple, to the point, easy to understand definition of religion. And you think, oh, philosophy or a religion. Since when religions are not philosophies? You know, you make it seem like if something is a religion, it's not a philosophy. You know, so it's a religion with Buddhism is a religion with a philosophy. And also, please understand that you don't have to have a god to be a religion. You could have belief in supernatural without a god. And again, supernatural by its own is not enough for something to be a religion. And the rituals need to be like pretty, like certain, there's certain level of rituals needed for something to actually be a religion. Like it needs to be advanced and, you know, something that could be considered a culture of a people, right? So for example, palm reading is a belief in supernatural, but it's not a religion because it doesn't have a ritual that could be considered like, it's not, there's no ritual, there's no specific orthodox canonized ritual that defines a group of people that makes this, we are the palm reading people. Right? It's not like that, right? So therefore palm reading would not be a religion. It could become a religion, but it's not, right? Also, a lot of people think like all forms of dogma are religion, right? No, if it doesn't have belief in supernatural, it's not a religion by definition. All right. Uzbek atheists, what? Aesthetic is saying, in our lifetime, China will become the most powerful nation on earth. Doubt it. How do you think life will be like once they are the ones dictating terms worldwide? China is not going to be the world's most powerful nation on earth in our lifetime. However, they will become powerful enough, a lot more powerful and powerful enough to be able to dictate terms worldwide without being the most powerful nation on earth. Okay, you guys are really underestimating the gap. You know, I know why it's hard to believe that the gap between United States and China is so massive that it's not going to be closed for the foreseeable future. The reason is because United States power is just there and China's is rising, but and that's the rise of it just makes it seem like, oh my god, they're gonna just be the most powerful country like right about like one generation. No, the gap is just way too big for them to be equals. However, they don't have to be equals. It doesn't even make sense financially for them to be equals. It's just so much waste for them to be equals. They will be able to demand terms. You could cause so much misery and chaos and become such a headache with 1/10 of the power of the United States, so much so that people have to listen to you and you will be able to dictate terms and people have to negotiate people with you and people have to take you seriously because with 1/10 of the power of the United States, you will be a new like you will not be able people will not be able to ignore you, right? You don't have to have equal power. In fact, having that much power is just like you're wasting. Why would no? No, it's not gonna get there. At least not in our lifetime. However, yes, it will still suck because China is a country that at least countries like North American countries and Western European countries have to somewhat care about human rights. I know there's many examples of them contradicting actually this whole human rights being important to them. There are many examples. I know you don't have to list them for me. However, there's some limitations. There's some respect for human rights, okay, and some understanding that there are some rules that we have to abide by, right? The problem with China is that they don't no there's like no barriers, anything goes, and that's horrible. However, it's hard to predict what things are going to be like because it's possible that China's identity will change as people's GDP per capita rises, right? One reason people expected China to become more caring about human rights was that they understood that if a country keeps becoming more advanced and become the economic growth will lead into democracy and this desire for a clean human rights record. And they're like, we just need to trade with China and eventually we'll get to that point because of the relationship that China has with these other countries and these values that will become unanimously accepted internationally because of these are how advanced countries and rich countries operate, right? However, I do think that this is a miscalculation because I think this is more a function of GDP per capita rather than GDP. So even if China's GDP is massive, right? What is a better predictor of actual human rights and democracy is GDP per capita. And again, there are exceptions to this, especially for countries that have to have oil coming, like, or other natural resources, because their governments don't have to appeal to their people. But as a country keeps growing economically, and a major source of the government's resources comes from its own people, then the people's relative power to the government will keep increasing to the point where potentially, by the way, none of this is like for sure, to the point where people are going to demand beyond just like being able to keep a roof over their head and food in their belly. They would want rights, they would want freedom, they would want other things, right? So if China, we don't know what China's nature is going to be like when that happens. It might have a crisis of identity, things might change, right? So it really depends on how China changes internally as its economy grows, right? And a more demand for consistent human rights record might change China's nature internally and externally. Okay, again, I'm not saying any of this will happen. I'm just saying the factors are so massive, so high in number for anybody to be able to come up with an accurate prediction. Why do you accept U.S. intervention in the Middle East as normal and good? I don't. I just accept that reality. I'm just not. I just know how things will be when the players get to do what they want to do. Like, I know, like, you have to see, if you want to play game theory, you have to see what's in the best interest of all the players, right? And how and who's exerting pressure using what on which player, right? And given all the pressures and all the capabilities of all the players that are playing this game, it would be naive to assume the US government would not be meddling in the Middle East. And in fact, meddling less now in the Middle East, like the meddling, this attempt to try, maybe try and fail or try and succeed, to keep meddling in the Middle East, but maybe a little bit less so that you could focus on China, right? Given what we all talked about, this is all expected, right? So for people to come and be like, well, this shouldn't happen or this should happen. But then if you look at the things that are at play, then you could see that this is how it would happen, no matter what you like. Like, it, it would be bizarre if something else came out of it, right? I don't know if people understand that every country that could meddle in other countries does meddle in other countries, as as much as they're capable of, right? And as much as there's external, and when I say capable of, I'm not just talking about resources. I'm also talking about internal and external pressure in response to the meddling, right? So, and also there are a lot of times, like, I'm not saying that U.S. intervention is inherently good or bad, right? But it's also not inherently bad. There are so many examples of bad intervention. Well, bad not because the people who were playing the game were stupid, but because the motivations behind it was not the same motivations as the people who want the, who are sitting back and judging. They assume certain motivations and they see the outcomes are not bad, are not what are not good. So they assume that the people who are playing the game are dumb. But then if you actually see the actual motivation, you can see like, well, maybe it was not as dumb as we assumed it was, right? But if you want your government to have the correct motivations and get the correct results, the answer to that is definitely not no intervention, right? No intervention could be disastrous, right? In so many situations, right? So intervention is not inherently good or bad. It's what kind of intervention we're talking about, right? And for what goal, I just hope people who are completely non-interventionist, like 100% against intervention, all intervention, any source of intervention, I hope they understand that they're also, the idea of never forget, after World War II, you have to understand that you are, I'm not saying if you're right or wrong, but you have to understand that you are against that, right? The idea of the international community being responsible for crimes against humanity, if you are against any form of intervention at all, then you are saying that never forget or never again, those promises that we failed over and over again, the whole world betrayed over and over again, like in Rwanda, in Cambodia, in Iraq, in many other places, right? In Yemen, in China. But if you are against any form of intervention, you are saying that forget, it's not our problem. Okay? You're like, let the suffering continue. They have to deal with it. Like this whole idea of humanity getting united to save other humans, you're not for that. I just hope you understand that. If you are against all form of intervention. Did you watch recent discussion of Apostate Prophet and Pine Creek on Muslim Thought Adventure podcast? Those were disasters. I think atheists should take philosophy seriously now. Well, I think if you want to take philosophy seriously, which I have, is to just understand how bad philosophy is as a tool to come up with conclusions. But yeah, I do think I haven't watched it, so I don't know. So I'm not going to talk about it because I haven't watched. But yeah, I do think people in general need to read more. Oh, I already answered that. I'm guessing the people in Khuzestan were directly affected by the Iraq-Iran war. Yeah, it was entirely about Khorramshahr, which is the city in Khuzestan. The whole war was about that. DTR saying, since you probably won't be able to return to Iran anytime soon. Oh, that's so cute. Anytime soon? Ever. I would never be able to go back to Iran. What place in Iran you wish you had visited? I wish I spent more time in Esfahan and in Qom. And no, it's not the cities that I've already been to, but I did not know the historical significance of it. And I wish like I knew what I knew now, and I went to see those places with the current understanding that I have of its history. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Questions. Okay, so you're talking Albania, Bosnia, and Kosovo, Muslim majority countries in Europe. I have no idea about how these countries are, honestly. Like, I am very ignorant. I have to say, I don't know how lives in these, how people live, how being a Muslim country. I mean, these are. I know Bosnia and Kosovo are not like ruled by Islam, or like I think like people are a lot more chill with their Islamic values and rules. I think they're mostly like culturally. I assume like they're just like mostly culturally Muslim and not really. There's no rules in the government that is based on Islam. Albania is like what really? Oh yeah, you're right. Shia Muslim, of course. Albania is in Albania. Albania is in Europe? Why did I assume Albania is like? Why did I assume? Oh yeah, fuck. No, I'm thinking Azerbaijan. No, Albania is not Shia. Fuck, I'm confusing my A's. Never mind. I confuse Azerbaijan with Albania. Fuck, I'm being stupid. Albania, what percentage? I am so ignorant about the Balkans and country. Albania Muslim population. Muslim percentage. 98%. Okay, I'm completely ignorant about these countries. I have no idea. I didn't know Albania was 98% Muslim. Bosnia. Yeah, I have no. I'm gonna admit, Bosnia is only 51% Muslim. Kosovo. I know the Islamic Republic of Iran made a huge deal out of the fight between Muslims, between the Serbs and Muslims, to be like in favor of like the Muslims there when the war happened. So that's the only reason why I know a little bit about Bosnia. I remember as a kid in Iran seeing pictures from Muslims in Bosnia and be like, "Oh yeah, these are on our side." And I was looking at them and like the women were not wearing any hijab and they looked white. I'm like, these are Muslims. So I remember as a kid dealing with that and thinking like, how are these Muslims? They don't look Muslim. Yeah, so I don't know anything about these guys. The only thing I know about Bosnia was like the childhood indoctrination in Iran that I had when it comes to our government, like trying to take a side over like the propaganda, like these people, we're going to support you. Actually, I think the Islamic Republic of Iran did support like the Bosnians and like, the Iranian Islamists. Iran sent a whole bunch of radical people over there and they worked with people that eventually became Al Qaeda. So there's that. I know that much, but I don't know anything about Albania. Is Albania like look like an Islamic country? I'm just assuming, like the idea of Albania being like an Islamic country, like what does Albania even look like? I don't think Islam, and I think like look at their flag. Their flag doesn't even say Islam. Yeah, it doesn't look like an Islamic country. Look at these castles. These are like European castles. It look like streets look European. The people look European. Nothing about this country says Islam to me. And these are 98% Muslim. What makes them like, oh God, I am so ignorant about this. So ignorant. Why is it that people don't, these countries, ever since the, war in the Balkans and stuff, these countries have never been on the news recently, have they? So that's probably why I haven't been looking into them as well, because there's nothing in the news that covers them. Yeah, there are 3 Muslim majority countries in Europe: Albania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Kosovo. Herzegovina. Yeah, but we called it Herzegovina. I remember these from my childhood. Buddhism doesn't have any dogmatic beliefs. No, it does. Buddhism is full on dogma. That wasn't a question anyway. Why did I highlight that? Anyways, I'm just going to highlight questions only. How do you answer the question, what was there before the Big Bang? That's a nonsensical question, because time started with the Big Bang, and therefore there was no time for anything to be before the Big Bang. So that's a nonsensical question. Oh, here's a question. Do you think countries like UAE and Saudi Arabia will secularize eventually, or will the local conservative backlash be too much to bear? Every country will secularize eventually. It's just when, like the timing of it is hard to imagine. But I can almost guarantee you, unless there's the human race destroys itself for some reason, that there will be a gay pride parade around the Kaaba one day, and I would bet everything on it. I just don't know when. I would say within less than 200 years, there would be a gay pride parade around the Kaaba, and people should remember me when that happens. I want these videos to be played at that time. The black drapes of the Kaaba will be replaced with the rainbow flag, and there would be at least one reporter that would be looking at the camera crying and saying, nobody saw this coming. If people before could see these images, they would be shocked. If they could just see it, if this person or that person were here, they would be lost for words. But look, it's happening. The thing that nobody thought possible is actually happening. It's happening. This is the final, this is the last place on earth. And now love wins everywhere. And then the camera will zoom on the Kaaba, and there would be people with the gay flag would be going around the Kaaba, and there would be a gay flag on top of the Kaaba. The drapes would be rainbow colored and everything. No, it wouldn't. It would be a lot more elegant. Like, it wouldn't be like over. They wouldn't overdo it. Okay. But yeah, it's going to be glorious. The Qasim, did you ask something that I missed? Can you ask it again? Who killed more civilians and destabilized more countries in the past few decades, the United States or China? Well, obviously the United States, but the question is that if China had the power of United States, they would have been doing a lot more harm than United States. Okay, so United States, just because of the sheer power that it has, it's the most source of good and the most source of harm in the world, just because it's just the biggest thing out there, right? United States is the country that is responsible for the cures of a lot of diseases. It's responsible for most of the charity in the world, most of the aid in the world, most of the technology in the world. Most countries coming out of poverty are coming out of poverty because of the technology that the United States has gifted to the world, right? But also when it comes to destructive power, United States is still going to lead because it's just a superpower. It has the most power, right? The thing is that if let's say like you pick another country and that was a superpower. Imagine if China had the power that the United States had. Then I think the balance of harm versus good, given the nature of China, would be a lot more towards harm than the US. Or imagine if the Islamic Republic of Iran was a world superpower right now, right? Do you think, so when you answer these questions, you can't just compare it just one for one, country for country. You have to compare it to the relative power that those countries have, all right? And imagine what other countries would behave like their current nature if they had that much power. What are you guys talking about? Ali keeps coming to our is in most of our shows. Just one show. This is just a show that I'm doing for people who are awake at this time, but Ali is not able to do it at this time. But we do 5 shows every month, and the 4 other shows, Ali is always there. So I mean, most of them he's there. So if those shows are for patrons only, so but it does get released after as well. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. The patron shows get released publicly, the audio version of it, and Ali is there. Have you guys not been watching our videos? Why are you not watching our videos, Priya? Huh? Go right after the stream. Go watch all our videos. Anyways, I need to end this because we're already been over an hour. I'm just going to answer. Make sure. Soha is saying, as far as I know, Albania is a Muslim majority, but the people are not that religious. Most of my Albanian friends are not religious. Yeah, I mean, is it? Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a Muslim. It just doesn't feel like. I'm just being stereotypical and biased. Okay, growing up in an Islamic country, I look at Albania, I look at Bosnia, I look at Serbia. I'm just not getting Islamic vibes from you guys. Like, you tell me you're Muslim, but are you really? I'm being bad. I'm just kidding. Do you think Iran is about to revolt in a civil war based on the current state? I already answered this. Based on a state of protest, water shortage, economic issues. I already said it's unpredictable. It's impossible to predict. The number of external factors is too massive for you to be able to predict something like that. Qasim's question. Thank you, Music Guy, for asking Qasim's question, because I must have missed it. What do you think about Iran's national net? Starlink internet receiver is expensive for most of Iranians. Can they make a cage? Okay, so a lot of people don't know there's an attempt in Iran by some authorities, to just shut down the internet and have an internal internet that is disconnected from the rest of the world, or just people get connected to the rest of the world just with permits and stuff like that. They recently passed a current bill that doesn't do this, but it seems like they're trying to move to the direction. A lot of people say, and I think that's true, that would be technically impossible to do. I don't know how possible or impossible that would be. And people say even if they're capable of doing it, that would devastate the country so much that it will topple. Like people will just be like, okay, that's it. They will topple the government if that happens. I don't know. Like the Iranian people have already had access to the internet. To get that away, to take that away from them, that would be like just, a lot of people's businesses and lives depends on the internet. I don't know if that's going to happen. It just seems like impossible. If it happens, then I'm like, okay, like, come on. If this doesn't topple the government, I don't know what will. And I think like a lot of people who are passing these bills when it comes to like trying to censor the internet, they themselves have no idea what they're passing because they have very limited technical understanding of what the bill is trying to accomplish, and then they just pass a bill, and the people who have to do it technically, then they were like, well, this is impossible, and like, just make it happen. And also, this is basically directly coming from the supreme leader himself. Like the Khamenei sees social media as a major threat, and he's just like demanding it, like that we need to like just shut down the internet, and we just need to have our own Facebook and our own Instagram. And people like, well, people don't like people, he just thinks like he could just make a Iranian Facebook and then shut down all social media, and everybody will just stay on Iranian social media. That's his dream. That's what he wants. It just so I mean, this is a guy that has said some things that I can't even repeat here, that makes me understand that he's delusional, and his understanding of science and technology is so childish that he doesn't even know what he's asking for. However, because of this push now in Iran to shut down the internet from the external world, a lot of people are now tweeting at Elon Musk that like they're about to shut our internet. When is Starlink coming to Iran? When is Starlink? I don't know if people know what Starlink is. Starlink is like Elon Musk's company trying to provide satellite internet coverage all over the world, and it's like, I think like within a year or two it will get coverage all around the world. It still hasn't gotten coverage in Iran, but like they're adding satellites really fast, and it will have coverage everywhere. So that means that anybody on the planet that has a Starlink account will be able to connect to the internet without going through any internet providers. And if people in Iran and China manage to have access to Starlink, that will be devastating to the governments there, because that means like the end of censorship. Like for these, that would be the end of censorship. And I can't even imagine the consequences of having no censorship in China and in Iran, right? Like people just being able to directly connect to the internet with no government in between. It would be, I can't even start to imagine the effects that would have on Iran. It would be amazing. It would be glorious. It would be a revolution of its own. So Elon Musk might be able to bring freedom to China and Iran just with the Starlink. However, what Qasim is asking is that I think it's $150 for you a month, right? And $150 a month to pay for a Starlink account. Am I correct? And what they're saying is that most Iranians are not going to be able to pay that, right? However, my understanding is that it's not one. You don't need to have one. I don't know what the equipments are. You need to get the equipment. You need to pay for that. But an entire building can share that. So you could get one per entire building. Like not everybody has to have their own equipment and their monthly plan. So I think like if you look at it that way, you could have an entire complex sharing that, right? So if that's how, in that case, I think it might become more affordable than a lot of people think, right? Okay. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you think the European Muslim majority countries should be used as an example for the Middle Eastern, African, and Asian Muslim majority countries as to what can be achieved? Well, I mean, I already told you that I have very, very little information about these Muslim majority countries in Europe. I wouldn't even be able to name them until recently, where you listed them for me. So knowing their culture and what affects people's behaviors and motives there is far down the list, given that I couldn't even list the Muslim majority countries in Europe, right? However, if I had to guess, the reason why these countries are more moderate and less cuckoo, right, and less Sharia, is not because they are doing a different kind of Islam. It's because they're doing less Islam, right? That would be my guess. They're just doing less Islam. Um, and if that is the case, which I assume it is, then the solution is what it has always been: less Islam. And less Islam means not just fighting against Islam, but also having better competing ideas against Islam. Just like the Enlightenment in Europe, right? The Enlightenment in Europe was not because we have better Christianity. The Enlightenment in Europe was because we had, partly because, not because, somewhat also because we had less Christianity. All right. And less Christianity was not just because these thinkers, Enlightenment thinkers, were fighting against Christianity. That was partly it. But it was also because they introduced ideas better than Christianity, which made the competition difficult, right, for religion, right? So the solution is always less religion. No, I did not hear about this, so I don't know what to say. Albania was part of the former Yugoslavia. They are Slavic people who became Muslim because of the Ottoman invasions of Europe. Yeah, but that doesn't help me with the information. This is true. Troll is saying Khamenei wanting to shut down the internet, the boomer levels that are off the charts. Exactly. Guys, I can't even tell you some of his beliefs because it's about the pandemics and stuff, and I might get in trouble because if I say some other person's opinion, YouTube thinks I'm saying it, so I can't even say it. But the man is, yeah. Vlad is saying, when is the Order Free Thinker coming on the Secular Jihadists? I don't know, but I know that Ali has been in touch with him, and I think he has confirmed that he is coming. So Ali is on it. Okay, I'm going to end this here. Uzbek is saying, I think it has more to do with identity. Most people in these countries are Slavic and thus consider themselves European first. Well, that confirms what I said, if that's true. I don't know if that's true, but that confirms what I said, because what did you, like, look at what you just said, okay? They consider themselves European first. So you're saying that they don't take their Muslim identity very seriously, right? That means that Islam has less of an influence in their lives. Here's the thing. When it comes to reducing Islamic influence in people's lives, you can't copy other places. Just fight for less Islamic influence, and do that by pointing out why Islam is wrong and also introducing better ideas. Okay, the rest of it is organic. You can't just do copy pasta on other countries, right? Just fight bad ideas and introduce good ideas, right? And less religion, better societies. Thank you, music guy. I will. I'm going to. Guys, I was feeling very, very sick, but I didn't show it, right? Did anybody feel like I was sick right now? Like I am really sick right now, okay? And I'm going to go recover now. But look, I was like the same as other days, right? I didn't even show it. Yay. You say you look fine. See? Inside, I'm dying. No, it's okay. I'm going to go take 5 sleeping pills so I could sleep this misery off. So all this headache and all this other things that I can't describe that I'm feeling, I could just sleep right through it, right? I'm going to take a lot of sleeping pills, and then, well, while I'm sleeping. As soon as I wake up, if I still feel like crap, I'm going to take more sleeping pills so I could sleep it off. And I'm not going to get up until this feeling is gone. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Rasa is saying, oh my God. Yeah, guys, if you want revolution in Iran, if you want to make sure that everybody rises up, just cut the internet. Rasa is saying, oh my God, I haven't even thought about that. Wow. Millennials and Zoomers without internet. Wow. Teens will go mad. Yeah. That would be it. That would be the end of the Islamic Republic. Like that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Like you could cut down all the water and some people will protest. But if you cut down the internet, then people are like, just kill us already, right? People will be like, they will be coming to the streets. Anyways, thank you guys. I'm gonna go. I just enjoy hanging out with you guys. Good. Oh, thank you, Troel, and thank you, Rosa. I did. Bye, everyone. Thank you, guys. Thank you for spending time with me. This was fun. You guys are awesome and fun to hang out with.